The White House released the Biden-Harris inflation plan that is supposed to lower cost and lower the deficit. In the plan, the Biden administration outlined short-term and long-term actions. Blame Putin, blame Republicans. That's the short term. The long term is blame Republicans, blame Putin. Really, their plan is short on any specific details other than blaming someone else. But it's a real problem. And if we don't get the economic policy straight, we're going to continue to have a sputtering economy. Now, the president doesn't see it that way. Here's what he had to say yesterday about his economy.
When we look at the economy today, it's clear we've made enormous strides. And our plans and our policies have produced the strongest job creation economy in modern times.
With me now to talk about the president's plan to combat inflation is Shana Burt, the new host of the nationally syndicated radio and television program Financial Issues. And she steps in to fill some big shoes for our good friend Dan Celia, who has gone on to be with the Lord. Their program airs on over 660 stations across America, and it's a privilege to welcome Shana to Washington Watch. Shana, welcome to the program.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, before we begin, again, just on behalf of FRC and the Washington Watch, want to express our sincerest condolences following the passing of our good friend Dan late in March. He was a dear friend, personally to me, but a great voice in this arena and a sound voice when it came to economic and financial issues. So I know you've been a regular co-host with Dan since 2020. Tell us just a little bit about your connection and how you became a part of Financial Issues.
Well, about 8 or 9 years ago, I was stumbling through the radio channels. I got in the car during lunch and it was on AFR and Dan was on. And I've been in the financial services industry for over 20 years. So he was talking about a topic that was right up my alley. And he mentioned the words biblically responsible investing. And that began my journey down that path. And Dan and I, just through divine connection, became friends. He started to mentor me. I ended up as a co-host, and now I'm hosting the show.
Well, that seems like a good jumping off point. Financial responsibility, that's anything but what we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. right now. What do you think of President Biden and his presentation yesterday and his efforts to get inflation and rising costs under control?
Oh, wow. Where do I start and how much time do we have? There were so many things that were just ludicrous in that speech. And if you really listen to it with any common sense, it's not hard to pick apart. First he talks about lowering the deficit. I mean, give me a break. If he's really going to do that going forward, it's only because he's going to increase taxes so much.
Well, let me stop you right there, Shana, because that's a really good point, because most people don't realize he's talking about not the debt, not the national debt, which is over 30 trillion. He's talking about the deficit, which he's including in that spending the one-time coronavirus relief monies that were spent, which inflated government spending. And so he's just saying, all right, out of that several $trillion, we're reducing it by $1 trillion. So this is a real shell game when we're talking about real numbers.
Politics is always smoke and mirrors. And, all it is really the reason that the deficit is reduced this year, the budget deficit, as if we really have a budget at all, is because all of that COVID relief is ending. And, we didn't even spend all the money that they allocated.
Yeah. Let's talk about the stock market. I mean, this is kind of your bread and butter when you're looking at this. The stock market is taking a beating lately. What do you think is driving this decline, and how much further is the decline going to go?
Well, I mean, we don't really know in the short term. Financial issues, we've really focused on being a long-term investor, and the market is really a leading indicator. What that means is that the market's always trying to get ahead of what it thinks is happening in the economy. So short
Right.
term, it's fear and or greed that drives the stock market. Long term, the market is really driven by what's happening in the economy. So employment, inflation, you know, our economy depends on people working, and people working depend on whether Joe Biden likes it or not, although he claims to love capitalism, companies being profitable. When companies are profitable, they hire people, they reward them for working. People spend money in the economy because they feel good about their jobs, and that drives demand. So his approach to make the rich pay and tax all the corporations is really the opposite of the capitalism that he proclaims to love.
Now, Shanna, very quickly, we're up against a break, but the markets were kind of looking for signs in the March CPI index as to whether or not this inflation and the peak had come. What did they see in these numbers today?
Well, both consumers and experts were expecting to see inflation peaked out and drop to from 8.5 to 8.1%. What we saw was 8.3. And we usually look at the headline number, we put more weight on that, whereas most other economists don't. But the core number gives us a peek into some things too. We all know that food and energy has gone up a lot.
Right.
But when we strip out those things, that's what core inflation is, and we've seen some strength there. Unfortunately, strength in inflation is not a good thing. So, I don't know that we have seen it peak. I mean, I would probably expect it to go up a little more. I mean, just gasoline prices are at an all new high right now.
Right. Right.
And that, what
Despite
we're looking at is the April number for inflation.
Despite releasing the oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we need to open up more drilling and remove regulation. Shannon Burt, thanks so much for being with us. Shannon, great to see you.